Hello, fellow plant people. Welcome back if you're returning to my channel, and if you are brand new here, my name is Jen, and I go by the Leafy Geek here and also on Instagram. And today I'm kind of stepping out of the houseplant box a little bit. This is new content. It's something that I haven't done on my channel before. And it started as a giant experiment, because I'm just going to put that disclaimer out here right now. I'm not a mushroom farmer, or I wasn't until recently. I guess you can call me an amateur mushroom farmer at this point, possibly. I don't know if I have those bragging rights yet, but for those of you who do this on a larger scale or a more professional scale, or you sell mushrooms, you cultivate them, my hat is off to you, because this was super fun. And just I got a taste of it. And I am by no means an expert in the art and science of mushroom cultivation, but holy crap, you guys, this was so fun. So you guys probably, if you follow me on Instagram, you probably know what this video is about, because it's been in the works for a little while. I did a homegrown mushroom growing kit. I actually did two. Through a company. I did some research, just kind of looking for mushroom kits that were available online. And one company that I came across is SPORE. They are a farm, a mushroom-specific farm based in Maine. I'm going to have their information linked below, because they do actually have a YouTube channel, so I highly recommend checking them out. Oh, another disclaimer, SPORE did not sponsor this video. I have not really been in much communication with them other than to place my order and then receive my order confirmation and then my kits in the mail. But they have a lot of really useful resources if you are looking to start something like this or get into mushroom cultivation at home. They have a lot of different options for people too, depending on what their interest level is. I kind of just started out with an easy kind of homegrown kind of kit. It's all put together for you. So I'll show you a little bit. I have some footage from the past couple of weeks that we'll get to in just a minute. But as far as the information and how much they have available, and you can certainly connect with them if you have questions. They're very clearly open and communicative about wanting to share the knowledge that they have with others who are getting into this hobby, and in some cases this gardening experience. So I really recommend checking them out if you are so inclined. Again, their information, their website and YouTube channel will be linked in the description below. I guess we can start with a couple of definitions. So these are also on the website for SPORE. They have kind of an educational section of their website that's devoted to pretty much everything you'd need to know for growing. So what is a mushroom? What does that whole kind of anatomy entail? So the first one is the mycelium, and the mycelium is the largest part of that whole fungus apparatus. We know mushrooms, but the mycelium is the network of fungal threads that produce those fruit, the fruit being mushrooms. The mycelium can be found growing on surfaces or underground, and so that's where you get those huge expanses where you see like mushrooms popping up, kind of in a large patch. Those are all interconnected by the mycelium, which is often found underground. So they are wispy fungal threads that comprise a network that is basically the base of the entire fungus. Pins, or when you hear that term pinning, refers to the tiny fruiting bodies, baby mushrooms essentially, that pop up from the mycelium, and those are what show up on the surface, on the ground surface, or the surface of your growing medium. Once those mature, you're kind of entering the fruiting stage where the mushrooms are developing toward their maturity, and those are the actual mushrooms, the standard definition mushrooms that you and I are all familiar with. The last definition I want to throw out there is the spore. So we might be, as houseplant people, if you have ferns, you're familiar with what a spore is. It's basically the unit of reproduction that mushrooms release into the air, and that again is they reproduce that way. And basically a single spore can produce a new mycelium, and from there the whole cycle starts again, and you have wondrous bounty of edible fungi. Oh, there is one more definition. You might hear me refer to it later on in the video, but a flush is the term for a crop of mushrooms. And oftentimes a mycelium will produce several flushes during the course of its cycle. I just want to quick run down the 2 types of mushrooms that I am growing and will be harvesting actually today. I timed this perfectly. They are ready for harvest. So what we're going to do is I'll just kind of give you the rundown of the 2 types that I'm growing, and then I'll kind of show you some vlog footage that I filmed over the course of the past couple of weeks while I had this kit started. So you'll hear my voiceover during that footage. And then at the very end, I will show you in real time what they look like today, and we'll harvest, and I might even cook something up and make a little mushroom meal. Yay! The first one is called Hericium erinaceus, and this is also known as the lion's mane mushroom. A couple of other names for it are bearded tooth fungus, hedgehog mushroom, or the bearded hedgehog. You will see why it has those names. This mushroom is widespread throughout the northern hemisphere, so that would be Asia, North America, and Europe. However, its distribution in the wild is vastly different between those 3 continents. It's most prevalent in Asia. It's to a lesser degree in North America. It seems that it's mostly cultivated indoors on a larger scale here. And then in Europe, it's actually protected in several countries due to low or poor germination and establishment of this particular fungus. So kind of an interesting variety of its distribution. But in terms of commercial or cultivation, it seems that it is available to grow at home. It's a culinary and a medicinal mushroom, so it has several uses there. The flavor, if you're using it in a culinary sense, it's comparable to the flavor of lobster or of lighter seafood. And then it's currently, this is what's really interesting, that it's kind of a personal, hits me kind of personally here, that it's currently being studied for its benefits on neural health, specifically its possible effects on Alzheimer's and dementia. The second mushroom that I'm growing is the blue oyster mushroom. And this is, its Latin name is Pleurotus austratus, subspecies columbinus. I don't know if I said that right, but it is an edible subspecies of the pearl oyster mushroom. And its original habitat was originally Western Europe. It's cultivated all over the globe now. And it has kind of some interesting culinary notes on this one. It has a long storage life in the fridge. It's one of the longest storing mushrooms I think that's available. The only thing is it can start regrowing mycelium from its base, from the stems while it's in the fridge, which is not ideal, but it's prolific in that sense. The blue oyster mushroom is best prepared cooked. It'll have a hearty, meaty, slightly earthy flavor. That's what it's been described as. And it, unfortunately, if you choose to eat it raw, it can have kind of a metallic taste, and it can be quite tough. Best when cooked. You're going to achieve the best potential from this mushroom if you cook it up. So that is what I'm going to do. Okay, so I'm going to take you on a little video diary of the whole process. I got these kits delivered to me, I think it was November 21st, and that's where the next footage starts. So you'll hear my voiceover. We'll kind of walk through the progress of these kits, and then we'll come back to me here in real time, and I will show you what they look like, and we will harvest. So my kits arrived from North SPORE on 11/21, and they were in good shape overall. Everything was very clear and easy to set up. They come with a multitude of instructions both on the box and in a pamphlet that they provide along with your kit. Really clear instructions on how to activate it. When I opened mine, you can see here that there is a small crack in the mycelium there. This is something that is normal from shipping. They recommend just letting it sit for a week to recover, and that's what I did, and it was perfect after that. They also recommend putting your kits in a warm, dark location. Preferably next to a sink in the kitchen was an ideal spot that they recommended, which is what I did. I officially activated my kits on 11/29 by cutting slits in the plastic in the front door panels and starting to spray with distilled water. And they recommend doing this daily until the pins start to form, which is what happened here. We had lion's mane pins on December 3rd. That's what they look like up close. Kind of interesting looking. Baby mushrooms, essentially. And then my blue oyster mushroom pins started forming on the 6th. Once the blue oyster mushroom pins formed, I figured I would make it a little bit easier on myself and utilize a cactus desktop humidifier. But look at how quickly those grew. 1 day's growth, and those pins got huge in size. The lion's mane had a bit of a head start, so we were past the pin stage at this point. But changes on the hour. Something I noticed about this flush of oyster mushrooms, the blue oyster mushrooms specifically, was that the coloration was gorgeous when they were very small. As the mushrooms aged, that blue tint faded into like a gray-brown color, but honestly, it was so fun to watch these grow as quickly as they did. Checking in several times a day, you'd see something new, things would be a little bit bigger. It was just a really exciting experience to witness. And I honestly don't think I had a better location in my home for growing these. The the lion's mane also was starting to look like it was getting close to harvest time. I didn't want to harvest it too early, but again, it's kind of a fine gauge. Once you hit the thresholds for these, they're ideal harvesting times. For the lion's mane, it's 7 to 14 days after pinning. For the oyster mushrooms, it's about 3 to 5 days after pinning. So, I mean, accidentally, the timing was perfect for both of these to be able to harvest around the same time. But right now, it was kind of a guessing game for me because I didn't want to harvest it too early. You look for when those teeth start to form. Those are the little kind of tendrils that start to form off of the lion's mane. And for oyster mushrooms, you look for when the first caps start to turn up or kind of extend outward rather than curling down. All right, 12/11, as you can see, was probably going to be the prime day for harvest for these, which was ultimately a day too late, it turns out. They were showing me the signs that they were ready to go, but I think that this experience is, again, a learning experience, brand new to mushroom growing. I'm excited to do this again in the future. Okay guys, I'm here with my mushroom kit. So let's start with the lion's mane. I'm noticing something about this that I'm a little bummed about. But okay, so overall, looking pretty darn cool. What I'm a little bummed about is that I think ideal harvest would have been yesterday because it was not registering this kind of brown color. You see how it's turning brown around the edges? So ideally, I might have waited just a day too long to harvest this, but I'm still going to cook it up. I think it will still be very tasty. And overall, kind of that That white to a light cream color is what you're looking for lion's mane when you know they're ready to harvest. I was seeing if I could get, because it says once you see these teeth form, you're probably good to go. And so they were really forming yesterday. The thing with these mushrooms is that they develop so quickly. Like you can see changes on the hour. So honestly, I think that was just my fault. I probably should have harvested this last night or yesterday for like just peak mushroom awesomeness. But I'm going to go ahead and harvest this one today. I think we can salvage it. So just a great grower. I was so excited to see this one, develop. And then my other one that I've got going on is the blue oyster mushroom. And it's kind of funny because I don't see a lot of blue on this guy. That's all right. Looks pretty markedly different from what the image on the box looks like. But I'd heard through the course of my research that you want to harvest these young when you can. There's definitely a point with oyster mushrooms where they get a little bit too developed, and then you'll have a bunch of spores on your hands potentially. So these ones I'm going to go ahead and harvest today. They say to kind of look for when the very first caps start to turn up a little bit, then you know they're ready. So I think these are good to go. We're going to go ahead and harvest the oyster mushrooms as well. But yeah, they were so cute when they were little. They did have that blue coloration when they were little, so I'm wondering if it was more of like a humidity thing. Or maybe even a temperature thing, because my home is quite warm, and I've heard that these guys do well in cooler temperatures once they're fruiting. So that is just my experience, but I do have mushrooms to harvest. So let's go ahead and do that. When harvesting oyster mushrooms, find the base and take a sharp knife and make one cut down between the base of the cluster and the mycelium. That'll separate it out. As you can see here, I found some pins hiding underneath those larger clusters, so we'll hopefully have another flush happen. I separated this cluster and am going to remove some of the spongy bits from the base. And I'm going to try and keep the clusters together until I use the mushrooms. I'm not going to separate them quite yet. Not until use. That's the recommended storage method for these. Similar process with the lion's mane mushroom. This one was kind of harder to find where the base started and the mycelium began, and unfortunately I did pull away some of the mycelium. It did tear quite a bit when I was removing the lion's mane mushroom that I had going here. You can see some of that base came off. But what I'm going to try and do, and we'll see if this works, is I'm immediately going to spray this and get it nice and humid again and see if the mycelium will rebound and close up and potentially have the opportunity to have some additional flushes from this block. But it's a nice solid mushroom. It's a nice big base, and things are looking really good. So I am just going to break this up. We're going to slice it. It's quite spongy, and it's actually pretty terrible. It maintains its integrity quite well, but you can see the interior looks really interesting. It's something that I've never used before. I've never cooked with this mushroom. I've never tasted it. So this one is going to be quite interesting, I think. So what I'm doing here is I'm breaking it down into pieces that are about the same size. I decided halfway through that I'm going to save some of this for cooking, but I think the majority of this mushroom I am going to dry and potentially make like a mushroom powder with it. Here is the lion's mane mushroom, all cut up. It's quite lovely. So for the oyster mushrooms, I opted to hold on to the larger cluster for drying, but I did want to cook up some lunch with the smaller cluster. So you can see me here breaking down the cluster, just trying to slice off as much as the mushrooms as I can. As I was doing this, I did note that there was kind of a point on each of the stems where it's kind of like a natural breaking point or cutting point. The base of the stems were just so tough. As you get closer to the top of the mushroom where the gills are, things tend to soften up a little bit, but you definitely want to kind of find that point and make sure that any tough bits are removed, because those will not be pleasant in your food. So for this meal, I wanted to make a mushroom sauté and add some rice. So this is just equal parts olive oil and butter in a pan. And I added the mushrooms. This tends to happen quite quickly. They get color on them very, very quickly. So make sure to watch them and keep stirring. And I was going to add garlic, but I opted instead to go with some simple herbs. So I added rosemary, thyme from my garden, salt and pepper. I thought the herbs would be a nice complement without taking too much away or competing with the mushroom flavor. I added some pre-cooked rice. This is basmati. And then I also added some vegetable stock to just kind of incorporate and keep things nice and incorporated. And here is my sautéed blue oyster mushrooms with basmati. All right, so here is my mushroom concoction. It's just mushrooms, rice, a little bit of oil, a little bit of butter, salt and pepper, and some rosemary and thyme. I was going to add garlic, but then I just figured we'll let the integrity of the mushroom flavor speak for itself. So that's what we're gonna do. This is also my first time eating something on camera in my YouTube video, which is new and exciting. I hope you guys are excited as well. But yeah, here's a mushroom. Oyster mushroom. Whoa. Whoa. Yeah, that's good. Oh, I'm so happy with this. Yeah, that's phenomenal. It's very deep and earthy, and it does have some heft to it, some meaty heft. I'm a vegetarian, so my memories of meat are quite distant now, but this is delightful. 10 out of 10. Wow. Mmm. Mmm. Yeah, it's just a very rich, hearty, strong mushroom flavor. So if you're into that, would recommend. I will keep you guys posted as to how the dried mushrooms turn out. I will probably post in like my Instagram stories when I taste test the lion's mane mushroom and cook it up. And we'll try it fresh. I just didn't have the space in this video to do that. But yeah, find me on Instagram and look for that in my stories if you want to know what the lion's mane verdict is. So this is great. This is my lunch. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day and a weekend. And until next time, enjoy whatever the heck you want to enjoy. Plants, mushrooms, food, etc. Have a good one, guys.